Zoom. Shing. Shoo. G'day guys, and welcome back to Cities Skylines Down Under. Last episode I was working on a beachfront and just started work on a campground. This one's a lot larger than the one that I built in the episode before the last, and I'm going to continue work on it because it's, like I said, it's quite big, it's a bit of a project, but I do finish it off in this time lapse at the beginning of the episode. And then towards the middle of the episode, I'm going to be jumping into a live play where I build a bit of a sea break and this park as well. And also referring to some drone footage inspiration that I took when I was up at Port Macquarie last time. This footage is actually taken in the summertime and it's now the winter time, so I'm kind of looking at this footage thinking that I want to be up there right now. But beautiful blue skies and awesome water and awesome waves, and I'm going to be building that in just a little while time. But to focus on what I'm doing at the moment, and I'm working on the admin building for this campground, and what I wanted this campground to sort of represent, and I wanted it to sort of be one of those larger campgrounds that you that are all scattered up and down the east coast Oz. I mean, they're scattered throughout Australia, but like I know because I've done a lot of traveling up and down the coast that these campgrounds are a little bit more on the pricey side of things, but the features and the sort of things that you can do in them is pretty endless. There's a sort of campground that you either pitch a tent or rock up to in a combi or a massive camper van and park there for 2 weeks at a time and pretty much not leave the campground at all, because all the features, there's everything pretty much there. So I'm building a couple of different places that you can have barbecues and swimming pools and access points to the beach, because it is right next to this really lovely beach that I built in the last episode. By the way, if you haven't checked that out, go and do that. I think it's probably one of my most favorite builds. I say that so often, but it really is. I love how that beachfront turned out. It is so realistic. It is exactly what an Australian beachfront looks like. So go and check it out if you haven't already. It's really, really cool. And just take note as well that everything that I'm doing right now, this is like pre-park life. I built all this probably about a month and a half ago. I was sitting on quite a bit of a backlog of footage that I'd been building on and just releasing it week by week. But that's pretty much ending now. This is like the last video that I have done like in advance, so I'm gonna fire up the save game and continue work on it probably tomorrow. It's something that I've been wanting to do for a little while, and there's a lot of different features that were introduced in the new DLC, the Park Life DLC, so a lot of that can fit into what I've been building over the last month and a half, so excited to get into that too. And I said that I was going to be building this little poolside area, and that's what I'm doing at the moment. So this is, a lot of these campgrounds have some sort of pool and some sort of barbecue area, and they're usually in a pretty central location so that anyone around the campground can access it. And pretty much every single campground has a pool, even though it's right next to a beach. There's always a pool involved, so I made sure that I placed one down. They usually have one or two, but I just figured one would do for this. I will probably build another campground at some stage in this series, maybe on Broken Hill map, or maybe on this map when we start building the CBD. It might be around there or something, but that is probably it for the time being for now, because I've built two now and I'd like to kind of move on and build some bigger things. In terms of moving on with this series, after this episode I'm going to be working on the ferry terminal, and then after that I think that's it. So I've got probably about another episode after this on this particular map, and then I'm going to be jumping in on Broken Hill map and working on some stuff there. Got a bit of a backlog of drone footage that I'm going to be using to work on a train line and a couple of other bits and pieces to basically continue work on that abandoned line that I built probably about like 2-3 months ago. It's amazing how quickly time flies when I'm working on these series, especially when I'm releasing content once a week. I feel like that's a lot of content each week, but can't help but feel like these series just take a long time to kind of produce, especially the amount of detail that I'm going into. And in terms of detail, I wanted to really detail this caravan park and make so many little hidden details in it. So I want you to just keep your eye out and see if you can see the things that I'm talking about. I'll mention a couple of them in the commentary, but I would really like you just to keep an eye out, because I am adding in some real special things, especially if you live in Oz or you've stayed in caravan parks before, or even if you just got a keen eye. Like, definitely check out the things that I'm doing. I tried to keep it as realistic in terms of like people living here or like visiting this place, and where people walk around and access things and location. I think I said this in the last episode, but because I've spent a lot of time like traveling up and down the coast, and I'm spending time in caravan parks and just living around the beach in general, I can pretty much build all this based off my best off the top of my head, rather than having to look at any drone footage or even Google Earth. I can just kind of go off my own imagination, which is makes for a lot faster builds. Whereas like episodes will take a week to produce, whereas these episodes I can probably smash out in like an afternoon and a half or something. So that is like a real relief, and that's probably why I'm actually producing so many of these episodes at the moment. It's really, really lovely. And in terms of what I'm building at the moment, and so this is the caravan side of the campground. So, well, actually, no, it's not. It's a bit of both. It's a bit of a mix in this one. And what I wanted to do for this particular campground is there's like a couple of different sections of where people sort of stay. So on the left-hand side, you'll see there's some cabins where people will be staying, and then that sort of hosts a lot of self-contained areas. Whereas on the right-hand side, what I'm working on at the moment is a mixture of room for tents and then room for caravans too. And I'm also placing down a couple of little bungalows as well, just to just fill any gaps. A lot of these places will really utilize every inch of space. They already take up tons of space on land, and they pretty much chock us full of places to pitch tents or places to park your caravan. So try to make sure that no space is wasted at all. So it's been really cool hearing from so many people who live in Australia and getting in touch. Thank you so much for all the messages. Please keep them coming along. It's great to sort of meet so many people and find out how similar it is pretty much everywhere you go in Oz, and also people sort of like reminiscing about times that they've been in places like this. And I think when you build something, or when you see something being built that is so much like home, it really does something to you. And I think that's probably why I get so much interest in Springwood, because there's a lot of people live in LA. A lot of the audience for Springwood is people in LA, or people who just know that culture so well from movies and video games and all that sort of stuff. But I think building something like this for me feels very nostalgic and feels really special, because you just don't really see this in games very often. I've never seen any references to Oz in any game, so it's quite nice to actually do that. So keep them coming, guys. It's always lovely to hear from you. I might not respond to every message, but I do read them all, and I do love getting them too. And for this last little bit, just going to be adding in some foliage around this area. And if you saw me, I've placed out a couple of different restaurant-y bistro areas within this park, within this caravan park. And I've done that because there are usually a few. There's usually some that sort of host that one particular area, and especially with like bathroom blocks and things like that. I wanted to keep it so that everything was really accessible to pretty much everyone who was at staying at the caravan park. And the last little bit that I'm going to be doing is just putting down these paths that are, access points to the beach and to the park that I'm going to be building in just a little while. But these paths are really common, and they pretty much just allow instant access to people who are staying around here. Always loved these paths as a kid because you could just like take your bike and pretty much just bike ride around this entire place. And I think that's a real massive feature of these like places, these holiday-esque areas, is that they're so walkable and so accessible for people who don't have cars, that you can just sort of walk around everywhere and take a bike or access any point just on foot. So trying to make sure there's lots of paths, and it's really cool to see quite a lot of people actually using them. You'll see that in the live play at the end, that a lot of people are actually using these paths, which is so brilliant. And this is like pre-Park Life update, so that's kind of like a miracle in terms of Cities Skylines. We don't usually get people walking around in places that aren't exactly useful to them. The people are usually taking paths to get from A to B, and I guess there must be, but I don't know. It's crazy. It's really cool to see. Just a little bit of a rhyme. And that's it pretty much for the time lapse. We're going to be jumping into live play. We're going to be building a break wall and a bit of a park. And this break wall is inspired by a flight that I did up the coast in a little town just south of Port Macquarie. I really love this area. We stayed here a couple of nights, and this is before I have my Mavic Air, so this is all done on the Spark. But I think because it was such a beautiful day, the quality is just pretty incredible actually. And I'll leave it with you guys for a little while you check it out, and I'll see you guys in just a sec with a bit of a live play. Alrighty, so I've been doing about an hour's worth of building off camera, and I'm going to show you what that looks like very shortly. But first up, let's have a quick look at what we've been building in the time lapse. I've made a couple of changes, and I just want to sort of fill you in and just sort of show you as well how nice it is seeing some people driving around. I don't exactly know what they are doing in here. I mean, it's fantastic because it makes it look so cool seeing them driving around, but I think they're visiting the event spawners, to be honest, which is awesome. So I'm really glad I put them in. First up, we have this entrance. I think it looks so damn cool. Have parking on either side. This is the reception here where you sort of pay for your parking and your accommodation. And then over on this side, there's just like this random shack that I placed down. Up here, we just have like a whole block that is dedicated for recreation. And barbecues are sort of like a real... It's what you do when you go to these places. You have a barbecue, and on the beach, I think that is so nice. It's like the nicest location. I'm pretty sure I've talked about all this stuff in the live play, in the time lapse already, so I'm not going to go through too much. Couple of things that I have changed up. I've gone through and I've made all these roads super slow. So they're all about 10 kilometers, which actually matches what we were what the signs are as well. So if you look down there, we have a 10 kilometer. Oh gosh, that's close. And this is why we have such slow roads around here, because there are just so many people walking around, which you can actually see. I mean, look at this guy here. He's actually walking along the road, probably to his, well, maybe to the bathroom. Are you going to the bathroom? So cool. So it functions really nicely. It actually functions like a campsite. You don't really see very many campers driving through, but who knows, maybe down the track we will. So that is pretty much what we've been working on. I love it. I actually much prefer this caravan park to the one I built previously. But moving on from the caravan park, because I did start work on these ocean breakers, these seawalls, and I detailed them somewhat. So let's get to that a little bit later. Let's start from the very beginning. So I put in this skate park as well, and just some minor detailing just around it. As you come up here, I've put in a bit of a turning circle, but I will detail this a little bit later on down the track. we have a little beach here, and this beach, when I was in Stockton, this beach was pretty much dominated by dogs and their owners. So this beach is not like a surf beach, so I haven't put any waves in. Instead, I've placed down some dirt decals that sort of show that it's a bit more of a, bit more of a dirt sort of a beach. That's not a very nice way to put it, but you don't really chuck a surfboard down here. And I've really been going crazy with this sort of overgrown look around here, because this sort of area is fenced off because it is sort of like a protected area. There are some protected plants in here, and also probably some wildlife that you probably find. And yeah, these are the breakers basically. So I didn't want to detail them hugely. I mean, I detailed the entrances to them quite a lot because these are the sort of areas that I really like. However, way up in the distance, that's just no detail up there. I just couldn't be bothered, to be honest. To be quite frank, it took an hour to build, and I didn't really want to go to that much. But all around here, I actually would like to do a bit more detail. So at the moment, we have a couple of like little dirt patches, because this area in particular isn't exactly an area where you go to play a professional soccer game or anything like that. It's just like pretty much a transition from caravan park to beaches pretty much. So I am going to really dirty this place up, especially around these paths that aren't really that great looking. I'm pretty much just going to put dirt all around them, just to show that people have been walking around these areas. So pretty much the most amount of dirt is going to sit around these pathways. And then I think that'll probably be enough, and particularly around these roads. And you know what? I think that's pretty much as much as I'm going to detail around here. Actually, one cool thing that I am going to add is I'm going to add a... There we go. So this road here is, you can't just access that road. That is not just a road. You can, yes, use this road. Yes. All right. Getting way too excited about that. There needs to be a barrier, so I'm going to search through and find some sort of barrier, and I might even detail this a little bit, and then I'll go through that in a sec. Okay, we're back. So just added a couple of bits and pieces, and added this boom gate in. It's a little bit big, but I figured there needs to be some sort of boom gate to allow access to people who are using this area. But it's pretty much only servicemen who are entering this area. That's not like a general public sort of a thing. Real general sort of detailing. I added like a pile of rubbish here. You know how there's always a pile of rubbish that scumbags leave where there's like a beautiful nature area, and then someone's just driven up here and unloaded all this garbage. Yeah, bastards. But I figured we're going to need to add something like that because we see them plenty in Australia. And also just added in this curb around here. I didn't really want to, but I think it suits it a bit more. I just sort of lowered it so that it's not so sticking out. And just some real light detailing, just adding some benches in. And I would, now that I see people actually using this, I think I would like to have some sort of path that is like a major path that is going to snake all around this area here, and which will lead to the ferry terminal that we're going to build in the next episode. So I'm going to start it in this bit, and then next episode we're going to work on it at the probably at the very beginning. So I think, since there's a car park right here, I'm going to drag it from there. And I know that this pathway, this bike pathway, oh, that's already really cool. I know that it's super vanilla, but I do really like it. I mean, you all know my series Springwood. I can't really use these things because they weren't really a thing in the 80s. So using this in my Australian series is sort of like it feels like it's a new asset to me, even though it's you guys are probably totally used to it, and there's probably even better ones out there in the workshop. So I'm thinking something like this, and at the very end, yeah, I'm not going to worry about that too much, because that'll be for next episode's worries. And I think I'm going to detail this whole area, but very lightly. I don't really want it to be a massive detail fest, because there's going to be a lot of this area. Like, there's going to be a lot of this sort of area around this town, so it's probably important to keep it pretty light. But what I think the main thing I'm going to be doing is just dragging a lot of these decals just in certain areas, because it's not exactly the most well manicured area around here. It's pretty much just bare earth that is occasionally used for sporting things. I'm gonna do this off camera. I'll be back in a sec. So I told you I was gonna keep it super basic with the detailing. I really didn't want too much. I mean, these areas, they're pretty much just a little bit of grass, bit of dirt, some trees, and that's basically it. And that's generally the sort of feel I'm going to be going with most of these areas when I start detailing them. Like a couple of little interesting bits and pieces. This road here is another servicing road, but it just connects up with the bike lane. It doesn't really get its own road just there. And this road, I've already shown that. Gotta stick with what I haven't shown. I just made a very simple car park here, just dirt. People drive up on the side and they just park and kick a footy around, or go to the skate park, or go fishing. It would be so cool to see some other activities around this area rather than people just sort of hanging around at my event spawners. But, you know, what can you do? What can you do? For now, it looks really, really cool. I'm pretty happy with it. And like I said, next episode, we're going to be working on the ferry terminal and working on some more of these parks. And to be honest, I think that's pretty much it for this neighborhood. I don't think we're going to be working on it anytime soon. It's pretty much complete, and I do want to be moving on. So next episode is pretty much going to be the last one in this area. It's been quite a lot of fun. I've had a really, really great time working on these places, getting super nostalgic about these sort of areas, because I've spent a lot of my childhood and my adulthood just actually hanging out in campsites like this. But that is pretty much it, guys. Let me know what you think of the builds in the comments below. And if you are going to achieve something like this in one of your builds, I'd love to find out. And you can definitely always tweet at me at I'll leave a link in the description below. But that's pretty much it, guys. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. See you later.